Thank you very much for your attention. My name is Roberto Bonzio. I'm from Mestre, Venice, but I live in Milano and I work in Milano.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
And I've been for many years a journalist for newspapers and then in Reuters international news agency. Then everything changed in 2008. I decided with my wife to have an experience for our kids. Now they are young professionals. They were teenagers in 2008, and to move for some months in California. And we spent 6 months living in Palo Alto in the heart of Silicon Valley. They attended the high school, and meanwhile, I decided to meet, interview, and understand Italians of Silicon Valley. And I never ever expected that this could change completely my life, my way of thinking, and also my work. Because through many interviews, I realized, first of all, a website, a blog called Italiani di Frontiera, Frontier Italians. And I started to interview these people, and I never expected that understanding better Italian talent through special persons there would be extremely precious, not only to better understand Silicon Valley and Italians abroad, but to better understand the secret of Italian talent, and also, on the other hand, what we should change in our country to better value this talent, and why so many talented people have to move away from Italy to express themselves. So for months, I collected dozens and dozens of interviews, and also I made a lot of mix with the stories of Italians of the past. And first of all, from a lot of stories from Italians on the frontier of the past, the West, because of a friend of mine who is a prominent anthropologist at the Smithsonian Institution. He is one of the top figures about Native American culture. His name is Cesare Marino. And through years and years of work, he found some outstanding, unbelievable, wonderful stories of Italians in the West. And you wouldn't believe how much connection between the frontier of yesterday and of the past and the frontier of the present can better help us to understand what is this talent. But anyway, when it came back after 6 months, it could be, okay, you go back to Reuters, and then you publish interviews, your blog, and so on. But the first time I changed my format, instead of writing, I tried to have a storytelling, live storytelling. A lot of my characteristics came out, the use of music, the use of imagine, my love for cinema. And I've been so impressed by the reaction of the audience first time that after a while, I decided to leave a full-time job, not the worst full-time job in journalism, money, newsroom, to start a new adventure. And so Italiani Frontiera became my work. And my work, hard time, a lot of satisfaction, not a lot of money, but I never ever regret what I've done. And then Italiani di Frontiera at the moment has made a sort of international communities of talented Italians, both in Italy and abroad, through my storytelling sometimes in big events and trips. I had 19 trips since 2011, leading groups of Italian professionals to meet and understand and study Italians in Silicon Valley. And this has created a sort of international community, and also given me the possibility to do what I love to do, which is telling stories.
That is lovely. That is lovely, Roberto. That's lovely. Very interesting. It is good to talk about story. And of course, today we are going to be looking at your version of story, the stories about you. Because you can read on that here, everyone has a story to share. And we are really passionate about that each and every one of us has a story. All right, now let's go back one step backward.
No, I was born in Mestre, Venice, and I think that my comes from my father. He's been journalist, and he taught me the curiosity and also let me do what he couldn't do, which is study and traveling. And there's also another funny thing that my big passion for the West, the far West, Western movies, come from the simple personal experience. Because my father, as a reporter in Mestre, he was working nearly 45 Sundays a year. So we didn't know a weekend. We spent our Sundays in a small cinema in Mestre. And so I think that the Western intoxicated my imagination. So all of us have seen some Western movies. I've seen dozens and dozens of these movies because I had to spend all my Sundays at the cinema. And so when I went to the frontier of today in Silicon Valley, this big experience I have behind and meeting and knowing my friend Cesare Marino with these wonderful stories of Italians in the West. So this was a sort of heritage, and I find a way to mix the stories, and this helped a lot to better express these stories. And I would say that one of the secrets that by a lot of things, in my experience, first I did it. Then after a while, I realized why I did it. It's always like this. Huh? Steve Jobs say that you have to move with your heart and your passion, and connecting the dots is something that you do after. You connected the dot of your past because you first go where your heart and your passion say go, and then after you understand. So I think there's another thing who worked very well was the connection between stories. I don't tell only stories. I connect these stories in a very strange way sometimes, in a very eccentric way. And I'm sure that the first time when I was in Silicon Valley, the first time I put one story from an Italian in the West of the past on that blog, I'm sure that some people say he's crazy. This has nothing to do with Silicon Valley. It's not true at all. And then I realized a lot much later how much of the San Francisco story and also of Silicon Valley story it's connected with the West. The same dynamics of the gold rush. San Francisco was a small village before the gold rush in 1849, very small. And then suddenly somebody found the gold, and that small town in in very short time became the place where hundreds, thousands of people from all over the world want to run because there was a possibility to change suddenly your life. You run to find the gold, and something can change completely in one moment. So, for some strange ways, some dynamics of the San Francisco during the gold rush are the same dynamics of Silicon Valley today. For example, during the gold rush, few people became very, very rich because they found a lot of gold. Some people became extremely rich working on the other of somebody on the dream of the others. So they were selling the jeans like Levi. They were selling all the instruments for the gold rushers, and they became extremely rich. In Silicon Valley, it's the same. You have a startupper who are looking for the gold. They work hard, And then there is a lot of people who want to give them advice, help, different instruments for their run to the God. And many other things are very, very common. So my curiosity helped me to better understand also Silicon Valley, but it comes from the stories of the past.
In the United States, there are a lot of Italian people in New York, in many other parts of the United States, for example. So, did you manage to meet them? How was your engagement with them when you were trying to tell this story?
Well, for my experience, I can talk only of San Francisco and Silicon Valley. There are different levels. There are some young immigrants. I mean, young people who went there for Silicon Valley in the last 30 or 40 years. The very first were the one who went there and in the 70s for Olivetti, when Olivetti was a big company who opened an office in Silicon Valley and so on. And there are many others that are young. Some of them are in the 20s now, and when they're like some of them in big companies, some of them like start-upper. Then there is another part of the group of Italians who are the immigrants who arrived there much earlier. And there are some connection, but there are two different worlds. Okay. For example, Silicon Valley has made a dramatic impact on San Francisco, really dramatic, because people in Silicon Valley gain a lot of money. So this has changed completely, for example, the value of the real estate. Okay, if you want to buy a house, if you want to rent a house, you need to have a lot of money. As you can imagine, this has changed also the social composition of the town, because also a doctor with good money has problem to buy a house in San Francisco. On the other hand, there are some young people, less than 30, that work in Google, Apple, and they can easily afford, if not to buy, rent a very, very expensive house. So this has made some dramatic contrast, and a good part of all the people of San Francisco hate this kind of dramatic contrast. So you can find many Italians of immigrants, Italo-Americans of Italian origins, which don't love at all Silicon Valley, sorry, while there are a lot of young Italians who were there to work in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So how was it for you when you got there? I mean, to sort of get settled and get acquainted with the situation. Okay, I understand now you speak English, so that help you. But I'm trying to understand how it was easy for you to get integrated into the system.
I think it has been much easier than I expected. First of all, there are groups and associations of Italians in Silicon Valley, like the SVIEC, Silicon Valley Italian Executive Council, with my friend Jeff Capaccio, that unfortunately passed away last year, I think, and he has been extremely helpful for me. Then there are other associations like Mind the Bridge or Bias, or Association of Italians connected to Italian business there. And I think that my curiosity and my energy in looking for stories has been accepted quite well there. And one of the reasons why I changed completely my life when I came back, it was that in some way I realized that what really worked when I was there was connected with some of my personal characteristics. I'm curious. I'm doing with passion things. I don't care how much money I gain tomorrow for what I'm doing now. And I'm crazy in connecting stories, but also in connecting people. All these characteristics in a traditional work make you look like this is a bit strange. I'm not sure he's the right person. So, okay. All these characteristics carried with me in Silicon Valley became some of the secrets of the success of what I've done. So in some ways, the Italiani di Frontiera, Frontiera Italians, really exploded in my hands. It came out so many stories, so many connections, so many people who helped me. Okay, let me introduce you another one. So everything has been much easier than I expected. Everything became much bigger, and everything happened because of these characteristics that I realized in a traditional newsroom were a sort of handicap, not neutral characteristic, was handicap, you know?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So when you were there in Silicon Valley, were you working more as a storyteller or as a journalist? Can you clarify that for me?
I think that I tried to collect and tell stories working as a journalist. So trying to find the most interesting things, find which is the news in these stories, which is the meaning of this story, and try to avoid bullshit or fake news and so on. So sometimes when I came back, somebody tell me, you're not journalist anymore. No, I'm more journalist now than when I was in a newsroom, but I'm doing journalism in a different way. I don't think that tell the stories in the way I do is not connected with journalists. I don't think at all. And I think that journalists should should think about this way of working, because journalism is often used to tell the bad news, and thinking that bad news are news and good news generally are not news. This is completely wrong, and I think this is a part of the problem that we have today. We need good. Not good news, but a story that can have an emotional impact. The thing is that's working in my storytelling is that it is extremely strong impact, has a strong empathy in the persons, and I think that it is really what we really need now.
All right. I'm sort of curious, no? That you're a journalist and you are also a storyteller. Yeah, that can be two things, but it actually can be also one thing. So I want you to tell me, what is the role of storytelling in journalism? I want you to bridge the two together.
The way I work, and first of all, is curiosity. So curiosity means that sometimes you find extremely interesting things of stories where you don't expect to find. But if you are curious, you dig under the surface, and sometimes you find something outstanding, and some other people, okay, which is the news, stay on the surface. They miss this occasion. So I think the curiosity is extremely important, also for connection between stories that seems not to be connected. And I think that a good way to make journalism is telling the stories in some emotional way, but this means that you don't have to forget the truth. You don't have to construct something which is false, and so on. That's the reason why it's so the dramatic success of the fake news. The fake news have a strong emotional impact, and we need so much of this emotional part. The good part of people, unfortunately, they don't care if the news it's true or not, and this is dramatic. While I think it's very important to construct an emotional impact on people with the stories and with news who are not fake, who are true. I tell you another thing about this. I'm very much involved in fake news because I hate the impact they have, and so I've studied, I've learned a lot, I've read a lot about this, and there's been a satisfaction for me that all the experts who analyze the success of fake news observe that there is no way to fight the fake news with the data. I don't know how many times on Facebook I found bullshit and I wrote, okay, this is not true. This has the data. This has the number. This doesn't work because it's so emotional, irrational, the the way in which people is catched by the fake news that this doesn't work. You can't fight fake news in this way. All these experts wrote or said in conference I've seen that the only real way to fight the fake news is storytelling. So make an emotional impact of true stories, but it's emotional impact that work, not the data of the story.
All right,
Hope
that
I'm
is
clear.
yeah, you are clear. You are clear. I was just reflecting, thinking about your response. Um, but what is even fake news? Why has it become very popular of recent?
Well, fake news it's a news that it is not true, something that it's not true, and this is nothing new. I mean, you can find very famous fake news in the past, in the traditional journalism in the past, in politics. It's full. They became very much popular now because a lot of people can publish and republish this fake news. All of us can use on the social for good or for bad. And a lot of people is used um, to publish news without checking which is, for example, the source, which is extremely important because there are some websites and some people who are specialized in fake news. So first of all, before, especially if it's a dramatic alarm that, so we've seen what happened during the pandemic, you should first of all check and control which are the source and it can be true or not. Well, a lot of people, because of emotion, they think to be helpful in republishing the same fake news, and this is awful because now this has become a powerful instrument of disinformation, misinformation, and for sure it was also used for political ideas. But before the fake news, there wasn't fake news on the television and before on the newspaper. Now we have a lot of social, so the impact of this fake news can be 10,000, 100 times stronger. Fake news are not new. It's new the dramatic impact that can have the fake news. And I think this is one of the reasons why we should reflect that we need as more as possible now journalism and journalists because our work is to check before to publish and also check after. But we need this kind of journalism that is not only share bullshit. And we have seen also in the past how much important is this kind of work.
Another curiosity I'm having, I'm trying to sort of understand is it possible that the fake news can be a kind of a strategy to misinform the people on a deliberate purpose? Or is it some kind of mistake? Those who are making the news,
No,
they just make mistake.
for sure, there is a strategic. This is already in our path. It is so. We know that for Cambridge Analytica, for example, there has been a dramatic company used to have impact with fake news with a strategy behind. And we know already. We know that Russia and Russian social media owner have a sort of a strong strategy to support fake news to have an impact on Western countries and the big success in United States of the fake news has been one of the strongest support for President Trump. So there is no. It's a question of the past now. For sure, there are strategies, very sophisticated strategies to use the fake news. They're not mistake at all, and that's the reason why we should be first of all aware. Second, aware of what we can do badly if we share bullshit that can have a dramatic impact. And but also that also the technology, the evolution of technology, had to uh, the popularity of the fake news because the algorithms of the social media know what you like, know your idea, new opinions. So it's much easier um, for this algorithm to choose you, to send you some special news, specific news connected with your way of thinking. Some of these news are fake news, okay? So all of us are often under a strong pressure of a lot of news, and some of them fake news, connected with the way we think. That's a reason more to be curious. Be curious means also to go out of your comfort zone, out of your circle of people who think like you, and look outside, check, confront, never be satisfied to try to better know the truth because it's a mission.
Well, that question of the fake news, I find it to be very interesting in that there are very many angles to it that actually we can trade on. Also for the fact that maybe because of the new technology, because there is internet, a lot of people have access to information. Anyway, one angle I would like to ask there is, what is even news? By news, by information in terms of journalism, what do we expect a typical journalist to do for us as a society?
I would say to be so it's a very difficult moment for journalism, and some of the pressure because the newspaper sell always less. The numbers are unbelievable. If you in the confrontation with 10 years ago, for example, and some of some newspapers are converted in part on digital, and this can be a good option. But on the other hand, there is the pressure of the of the velocity. Okay, publish before to check, for example. And this happened a lot of times, and you find not only mistakes but also big fake news because people who publish don't have the time or decide not to check before to publish. Okay, and this is a problem. And what I expect from a newspaper for the good journalist is that must be a sort of research of the truth. You probably never have the perfect truth, but I expect there is a sort of intellectual honesty to check, to correct if you make a mistake. No problem. We all make mistakes. But if you publish something wrong, you should tell that this is wrong. And what I expect from the journalist in the future also is exactly like this, to face this velocity in publishing, but with the stronger civic mission to better check and try to give the person the right things. Also, sometimes different opinions, but opinions can be different. Facts would happen generally only one fact. And so checking to find what is really happened is it must be important and must be important in the future. It should be important also for everybody opinion. I think that we should reject uh, uh, the fake news who support our way of thinking. We should reject. So this is not true. Okay, I reject. Why? A lot of times when I argue with people on social with the data and numbers, this is what happened, the truth, this is the fake news source that you use, etc. People sometimes say, well, perhaps it's not true, but I still think that. No, no. you must refuse fake news, also support your preconception.
All right. When you were explaining just now that you made mention of Russia, I was just thinking, is it possible that sometime this fake news can also be maybe a sort of propaganda, maybe at the level of states? So, maybe, for example, the war that is happening in Ukraine, the way that information is coming out now, that here in the West, we see what the Russian journalists are preparing. I would say, well, this one doesn't, it is not true. So this is fake news because it doesn't correspond to our convention of how things should be reported. And maybe when we go to Russia, they are looking at the way that the news is reported here. They also say, no, that is not true. That's not what happened. Is it, are we looking at it? Are we looking at something that can possibly be like this?
Well, I think there are facts that happened, and you can give different interpretation, but what happened, we must fight to understand what really happened. And there can be different opinions, but the fact which happened, happened. And this pursuit to understand what is behind the news, what happened, stayed. And on the other hand, I think that we had already had in the past a lot of dramatic changement. I think probably Brexit, probably the Trump triumph in the elections, and so on, which has been strongly supported by fake news. And there is another thing that we didn't focus on. The problem is of the fake news is that extremely, it has an easy emotive impact, and generally gives a simplification of complex facts. And that's another reason why it's more difficult to fight fake news. Because if you have to explain that it's not white or black what happened, it's always more difficult. That's the reason why, if you watch the television, people who shoot sentences, who say or fake news or stupid things, but they have the ability to tell this in few seconds, they always win on people who try to make a more articulate. So fake news is dangerous, are dangerous also for this, because they are a simplification, and very often the situation and the problem are not so simple, are complicated. So another way important is the way we face the complexity. And this is something on which I'm working now with Italiani Frontier Italians. So the ability of many Italians to face complexity better than others. It's not that we are more intelligent or we have a special gift, but this comes from our history. Our history and also our geography. It has been extremely complex, okay? A mixture of different culture, of different extremely rich culture. And that's the reason why you find in some Italians the ability to connect a scientific approach with technological approach, with a culture of design and a vision perhaps on ethics and or environmental impact. So this combination of different way to look at the problem is really the secret of success. The problems are always more complex. The ability to combine different point of view in one person is really the most important thing now to face this complexity.
All right.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah, please give me an example. Yeah, I'm interested.
Okay. Look at my t-shirt. Do you see the t-shirt?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Leonardo. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Leonardo and Federico Faggin. Okay. 3 years ago, Federico Faggin is the number one of Italian inventors. He's the person who signed the first microprocessor, okay? And some years later, he realized he signed the touch technology. If you ask people in Italy, most part of people think that Apple made the touch technology. But Federico Faggin did it first. But all the telephone companies didn't accept this. He said, "Look at here. You don't need the keyboard. You can just touch the glass." And all the companies say, "Oh, they will never work." Then he found one person who said, "I want to buy this in exclusive." That person was Steve Jobs. He didn't give the exclusive to Steve Jobs, but when Steve Jobs at the end realized made the technology, the touch technology, this made the fortune of Federico Faggin, because all the other companies that didn't understand before, okay, ran to Federico and bought his technology. Why this integration? 3 years ago, we had a wonderful weekend with Federico in Vinci, the town of Leonardo. And Federico gave us a wonderful reflection of this capacity of Italians to combine different qualities. And he said, if I think about how I designed the first microprocessor, and I was nearly 30 years old, and nearly all by designing by hand, a good part of the work made alone. If I look now at this microprocessor, I see in it a sort of beauty, an elegance, an harmony. And I realized that I gave a positive solution to a complex problem with a harmony in design. Then I realized that I was born and raised in Vicenza, the town of neoclassicism, the town of Palladio, and I realized that some characteristics of my past came out at the moment to combine a complex solution for the first microprocessor. I gave to this solution a beauty, an harmonic structure. And this is what we have as Italians. And he cited Leonardo or Guglielmo Marconi. Face a complex problem and see this problem from different point of views. The technological problem, the problem of design, of aesthetic, the problem of ethic, how do we combine and how we face in the future the use of this instrument. And say this is something special that we have as Italians. And when I heard these words from him, I realized that the most part of Italians, of successful Italians I met abroad, they told me nearly the same. We have something special for which people expect that an Italian can find a solution out of the box of a complex problem where other people don't find the solution because of the capacity to combine different things. In some ways, my very, very small experience, what works in Italiani di Frontiera Italians, is that I combine the curiosity, the ability to tell stories, and then my passion for the West, my passion for the movies and the music, and putting all together, probably this came out something good. So I'm a very, very small example, the much more important example than me. But a lot of Italians I met abroad told me the same.
Thank you for that. That's important. All right. I want you to spend some time on this complex thinking. Is it a question of culture, nationality, or does it have anything to do with genetic? I want you to speak more on that.
No, I don't think there's anything of genetic. I think that it is because of the culture. Because of the culture, and if you live in a wonderful town, you stay in Verona. Look at the history of the town. If you are used to the beauty and you are used to the complexity of the past, different things of the past. Because Italy, for example, was not a country, a nation till 150, 160 years ago. So we had a combination of invasions, and different culture and different people mixed, and this expressed in different kind of arts. And so this is extremely rich heritage. And I cited many times, I quoted many times Renzo Piano, the famous architect, and say that we are, as Italians, we are all dwarfs on giants' shoulder. And the giant shoulder, the giant is the culture that we have in our past. And he said the same than Federico. This culture, he said, give us a special ability to face the complexity, to mix science and art together, to develop an argument and so on. And this is the secret of success for many Italians. We should be much, much more aware of this and know that this is a sort of enormous theater that often we waste, because most part of people has to go abroad to be valued. And this is dramatic. We talk a lot of how much we pay for the immigrants, how much we pay for the poor people who come here with a boat. We don't realize how much money we waste, because most part of the good, young, talented people has to move away from Italy. This is dramatic. This is much, much more money that we waste. For sure, we should leave all the young people to go away from Italy, because when you go away, it happened to me, it happened, I think, anybody. When you go away, it's the best way to better understand where you come from. Okay. And this is extremely precious. So we should help young people to go abroad. But the problem is that we should create the characteristics in our country to let them come back.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think a country like India tap a lot about that. But I think also it's a question of the home country, in that if they come back, what do they expect? If there is an incentive for them to come back, they will come back. Yeah, you're right. Because we need the people that are going out to come back if we want to be able to move beyond where we are today. Because immigration in this sense can be very, very useful. A good example again would be India. Look at how many Indians that went to the United States, UK. I didn't say all of them return, or all of them will return. All the people that leave country, all of them never return. But some of them do return. But even though they don't physically return, they do collaborate, they do invest, they do exchange knowledge. Because at the end of the day, essentially, what makes the move is the knowledge. If you exchange the knowledge, then the people can, of course, go very far. Okay, if Italy never move away from Italy to America, maybe pizza, it would not be as popular as it is today in the world. So, yes, there are a lot of things that we can do even though we don't physically return, but we must connect. But, yes, having said that...
This happened in China as well.
Exactly.
A lot of Chinese went to 30 years ago to study in California, and then went back when Taiwan, for example, was a sort of third world 30 years ago. But they came back with a treasure of knowledge they share in their country, and this changed completely the development of the country.
Yeah, that's true. All right, talking of story, because I think what you said just now, the explanation, it relates to what we were saying before in terms of the power of storytelling. Now, I had a curiosity I just want to point out to you for your reflection. I want to see your reaction to it. Is it possible that we can actually create a story? Whether it is true or false, it's not really important. That we can just create a story and we can make it what we want to make it. Is it possible that we can do that?
This is a very, very interesting, very delicate point. I saw a book that I'm reading now, wonderful. The name is White Mirror, and it's analysis of the TV series by a literature expert point of view. Okay, really fantastic. So how much of literature and of dramaturgy of theater you find now in the good TV series? Okay, um, I love this book, but he's saying something that is very much connected to what we were saying. You were saying. Um, he said that there's an explosion of TV series which are different from the movies because it means it reflects the need that we have not only of storytelling but a long format storytelling. We really need this. And this book by Gian Mario Anselmi, he's a teacher in Bologna. He also said that we have a desperate need of stories, also because we project in the stories the need of a changement, of freedom, and because of many ideologies failed, it didn't give us the perspective of big changement, freedom behind the door, and so on. Our need of these stories is much stronger. And then he said that in needing these stories, you know that these stories are fantastic, and when you see and when you watch, there is a sort of you accept that these stories cannot be true. You don't need to. So you accept that these stories can be fantasy, and is a sort of a step behind. Okay, I accept and I go in a territory which is a fantasy, which is fantastic, and I don't need this. This can be historically true and so on. So this is the kind of approach that we have when we listen to stories or when we listen to fairy tales in some way. And so we need a good stories that's important and that is true. The problem is that you tell this story saying, okay, this is what happened. This is a news. No, this is a story. And the story can be fantastic. Hope it has been clear. I know.
Yeah, it's clear. Only that is very interesting. I like the line, in that I'm trying to see now. I'm not trying to defend those who create fake story, or what we call fake story, but I'm really trying to see if this is a kind of a rejection of the mainstream. Now the society is like an organism that is forming and transforming, disforming and reforming itself again. It doesn't have a kind of a model that will always remain the same. A good example would be the system that we have today as democracy, the way we dress, the way we talk, even our languages, for example. For how long has Italian as a language been existing? Few years ago, few thousands of years ago, there was not Italian, there was not even Latin, But then Latin came and it went away. We have Italian language, and we speak English, we speak French, but these languages are not going to last forever. Other languages are going to come. Maybe we are going to invent it ourselves by just talking. But at the point, we're going to do away with these languages, other languages, or maybe our children are going to grow up and say, they don't even like those languages anymore. So I'm trying to see if maybe what we are referring to as fake news is another way of interpreting this reality.
I think I want to know if I have to judge a situation. I want to know what happened, and I want to avoid or fight the fake news. Okay, to inspire, to better understand, or to know also the way of thinking, the atmosphere or the mood. Some stories of fantastic stories can help you sometimes better, And if you think of outstanding work of Shakespeare and what he have done for explain the human mood and also the situation of England without generally putting the stories he wrote in many of them in Italy, because there were some stories he couldn't write the same thing, putting the stories in his England all the time. Okay, but this helped us a lot to better know human humans and to better know also the age in which he wrote. And these are stories of fantasy, or sometimes they have an historical base, but this is different from this is not fake news, So the story can be fantastic and help us to better understand all the literature. It's like this. But if I want to know what happened, um, I want to know. I want to read a journalist who look for what happened, um, knowing that he is honest, intellectually honest. He can be wrong, but he doesn't have an agenda to make me thinking in a different way because he tell me something that it doesn't happen.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, because we're talking about storytelling, I want to know from your point of view, what is a good storytelling? Because now it is a powerful weapon we understand as storytelling. I want to know how you describe your own good storytelling.
When I read or when I listen to, I suddenly realize if it's good or not. Generally, it is because it has a good, strong impact, emotional impact in telling a story. And this is a combination of uh, good beginning, rhythm in telling, and choosing the right thing to value at the beginning. Okay. Sometimes it helps a lot that you, generally, it's better than say this is the story about started from the beginning, suddenly from an imagine, because the storytelling is very much, it should be very much of emotional impact. Sometimes to start from an imagine or some words, for example, can be extremely helpful to put suddenly the person in a situation without a prologue and so on. You want an example?
Yes, please.
Bam! I don't know if this was the real noise of that card that a person who very few people knows made, putting the card on the table of a very, very famous person. The very, very famous person, we all know him, is Thomas Watson, the one who gave the name of supercomputer of IBM. Okay. The other person it was a priest from Vicenza. The name is Roberto Busa. Roberto Busa graduated with a dissertation of Tommaso d'Aquino. He was involved very much with it in philosophy, and he decided he want reorder all the work of Tommaso d'Aquino. I mean, dozens and dozens of books with the computer. The problem that he didn't have a laptop because he graduated in 1949. And that computer was not like our computer on the table. It was at that moment, there was a big, big machine with a lot of wires and a lot of numbers, very few people able to interact with the machine. But he realized that crazy machine should be used for the work of Tommaso d'Aquino. And so other people say, you're crazy, forget. At the very end, he goes in the office of Mr. Watson in New York. And when also Mr. Watson said, we cannot do it, he made this shocking act. You know, the publicity of Apple was Think Different as the counterpart of the IBM, which was Think. So Roberto Busa went to talk to Mr. Watson, and when Mr. Watson said, we cannot do it, take a card with a thing and spam and put on the table. Now became a legend. The legend say that probably that seems that Thomas Watson was so much impressed by this person. They say, okay, IBM will give you the computer for this crazy work, but you must permit that you won't change the name of IBM International Business Machine in International Busa Machine, because it realized the kind of person that he had behind him. Okay, so Roberto Busa worked for 30 years. As you can imagine, he started working in the 50s with a machine that was never connected with the one with which used at the end in the 80s. 30 years of work with enormous capacity to work with a computer and to know the philosophy. Combining these two things, he worked for 30 years. He published 56 books, and Index Thomisticus that you find now online. And he was awarded in the early 90s with a prize that today is given every 3 years to the pioneers of what is the center of our talk, I think, which is the digital humanism. Okay, this prize now is called Roberto Busa Prize, and this story is fantastic. It's in this work he faced problem between the machine and the written text 15 years before the inventors of internet. Okay, so he has been a pioneer, a crazy pioneer, and he has been able to have a crazy idea and to work for 30 years to realize this. Okay, so for me the best way to tell these stories, very few known in Italy, it's a pity, is to start from SBAM. Probably it's not true, but I think it has a good impact, isn't it?
Thank you so much for that, Roberto. You're good. You're good. I like that.
Thank you.
All right. Always with storytelling, I want us to spend some time on creative storytelling. Now we're adding another word to it. Help me understand that. By creative storytelling, which I think is part of what you do more, what are we talking about?
Well, I think the start for the SBAM was creative storytelling. You don't have to do it, but I decided to do it because I think it was something of a very good impact for the beginning. And also give as the first step the idea on the table in which on one side there is a very, very famous person that we know because the name, and the other one, nobody knows him. But this is the other one who became the character, the main character of the story. I think this was a little bit creative, isn't it? So it's a true story. It's a true story. I don't have any proof of the spam of the card. I've read it, but I think that help us to better understand. And I think that all the meaning of the story is deeply true.
All right, that's good. That's good. We are going to have to believe you. All right. So, what do people need to be creative storyteller? What do they need to have? What kind of knowledge do they need to have to become creative storyteller?
Curiosity help you to read, to look for, to be impressed by something that you've seen in a movie. And it's very helpful also to have good mentors. For me, for my grandmother was a wonderful storyteller. She invented fairy tales, and I think that this helped because all of us should listen to stories, and I think Africa has a wonderful tradition of oral culture. We should listen to story, dig and find the stories of the past to keep them alive and tell the stories to other people. So my dream is that my way of telling stories can be a heritage for somebody else, to help other people to tell other stories, about other situations, not Italian talents or of Italians of Silicon Valley, and can help to free the talent also in telling the stories. There's another thing about I want to say when we talk about innovation, we always think that the innovation is learn new technologies, be used to new instruments, machine, and so on. For me, the most important thing is to free the talent in other persons. Okay, and telling stories can help this because um, I'm sure that the people that can be after me, they will face problems that I don't have any idea how to solve. I don't have any idea of the problem. I don't have any idea of how to solve. I have some ideas about what is a sort of weight that waste the talent of people, that don't let the people express better, okay? And tell the stories, connecting the stories that can be of inspiration on people can help younger people to do something that I don't have any idea how to do, you know. So I think the innovation, first of all, it's not it's learning, obviously it's learning technology and so on. But first of all is understand what we have to throw away to lift our talent, like the balloons, you know,
Yeah.
the flying balloons. Okay, you have to lift the white. And I many of my performance at the end I tell the stories of very good technician of Hollywood I interviewed I think more than 10 years ago. His name is Roberto Silvi. He was so good in the montage of the movies that he was called in Hollywood at the age of 30, and he had the venture to work with a giant of Hollywood like John Huston. So you can imagine a young technician of the movies working with a sort of giant of legend of Hollywood. And the most touching thing that he told me about this experience on working with a giant like John Huston is that when he had a problem in part of montage of one of the last movies of John Huston and asked the director help to have an advice how to do, John Huston didn't tell him do like this or do like that. He said, Roberto, surprise me. This I found this wonderful. First, because I am Roberto, I hope I surprise a little bit. But the message of this is wonderful. You are a master. You must think that the people after you, younger, have ideas that you don't have, and you must trust on them. You must give them the confidence to do and to try something that you don't have in your mind. I think this is fantastic, and this is a way to face the future.
Yeah, that's true. And that is also a kind of a push to get better out of yourself.
Oh, yeah. We must try to free the talent of the others. Not do like this or do like that. No, we don't know how to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, now talking of storytelling, what type of stories are we supposed to tell? Because some people believe they don't have any story to tell, or they don't.
No, I don't think.
Yeah,
I'm sure that you can find stories of your family. It can be impressive. I'm sure that we have stories around us everywhere, and sometimes it's only the curiosity to catch or to catch in your past, in the stories that you've heard, in the story of people close to you. They're full of stories everywhere. And the important is like a fruit. You have just to choose and to find. But I think that for example, the stories of the families are fantastic, and anybody has stories from the father, of the mother, or grandfather that can be interesting for others. Sometimes the way in which you tell the stories that can have an impact, but there's no problem in choosing stories. There are a lot of stories everywhere in our family, in our country, in what you read and what you see. Because sometimes you see a movie, and from the movies you have an idea that comes from your personal story of your personal experience, and you can build a story on this, starting from that curiosity.
There are stories everywhere. We all need to be curious. I like that.
Sure.
All
Do you
right.
know? Do you know the famous the Russian movie, the Potemkin?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So in this movie, Eisenstein, the Russian director, made a scene who went in the history of the cinema. Okay, there are the soldiers against the people on the big stairs, scalinata stairs. Okay, and in some moment, the soldiers shoot on the people, and one woman left his carrozzina. So this carriage, small carriage with a kid inside, go down on the stairs, doom, 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 doom. Okay, and this is extremely famous scene, which has been which inspired Brian De Palma in another movie, the same scene with the small carriage going down on the stairs. Okay, few times ago I read that Eisenstein were being impressed by some cherries that were going down on the stairs. Okay, so just the curiosity, stupid curiosity of some cherries going down, bouncing. Okay, give him the idea of a small carriage bouncing. So a scene who has been history of the cinema came out from a very, very small curiosity of a director who has been impressed by a very, very small thing, you know.
Thank you so much for that. Now, how can people connect with you? How can people probably want to do business with you or want to learn more about you? So use a few seconds to promote yourself. Please go ahead.
So my website is Italiani di Frontiera, italianifrontiera.com. I'm as Roberto Bonzio. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I must work better on Instagram. I will go on soon, also in TikTok, but in all in social, I am as Roberto Bonzo and as Italiani di Frontiera. Unfortunately, most part of things are in Italian. I had a dozen, I think, of storytelling in English. The last I sent you, the last was in Vancouver, January 2021. But generally, my work is in Italian. But I hope to express better also in English. A lot to learn.
All right, great. Now, the last question. What is the importance of storytelling? Why should people care about storytelling?
Well, it's not a new thing that we need an emotional elaboration of the truth of a story that inspired us. This is in the past, and this is also in the present. Sometimes we're not aware of how much bad stories are around us in the news and so on, and so we need the good news, the good stories, which can inspire. And for me, it has been a very, very big satisfaction. Realize that sometimes telling stories, inspirational stories of the past or the present, help us people in facing the future. I had friends, entrepreneurs, and so on who told me that they've been inspired of my stories in find a solution of a problem, and I didn't give any advice about that problem because the stories can help you sometimes to change your way of looking at a problem. Okay, and this is what we really need as more as ever now, because we come from two traumatic experience like pandemia and the war in Europe that 3 years ago were really impossible to imagine. Well, this has been two cultural, dramatic experience, but two cultural shocks because force us to change our point of view, to see the same stories from another angle. And I think the storytelling and telling stories sometimes help you or give you the inspiration to do this, to look something that seems like this Looking from another angle, it changes the meaning of the story. And this is what we really need now. So we had a lot of preconception in last years. Imagine just the racism. For years we have been in Italy full of story. Oh, we must protect ourselves from immigrants because we must defend, we must protect, and so on. Then it comes out something that no barrier, no wall can stop, like a virus, and we realize that we must change our point of view. Or we think that we have imagined our health and our security as a global problem, changing our, or we think, okay, we close the doors, we put this is forced us to change our point of view, and can be also dramatic, but sometimes also helpful, and really we need to change our point of view in facing many problems, and with optimism, thinking that a lot of people found impossible solutions to dramatic problems in the past, and we can do this in the future. And sometimes tell the stories of yesterday or today help us to face with a better way, with optimism, the future.
Yeah, Roberto, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure listening to you. This is really so interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, babe. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your...
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.